Alright, good morning everyone. We are here with break 419. This is another one of our 26 League Heroes combo breaks, and it features a 26 League Heroes case, 26 League Heroes hobby box, 4 26 League Heroes starter packs, and 3 26 League Heroes blaster boxes. Our team list for today: Broncos, Luke Pollock; Raiders, Stephen Murray; Bulldogs, Skarstrom; Sharks, Ben Smith; Dolphins, Tony Luxton; Titans, Caitlin Nowlan; Manly, Nicolas, Rovolas; Storm, Greg King; Knights, Adam Barber; Cowboys, Simon Grigg; Eels, go Carlin; Panthers, Sharyn Greggs; Rabbitohs, Brett Hudson; Dragons, Adam Barber; Roosters, Greg King; Warriors, Naytan, Midgley; Tigers, Robert Thomas with the Raz win. Alright, let's change our screens, and here we are. We are a bit delayed this morning, guys. I do apologise, but it is a Saturday morning, and the kids are here, so yes, things happen. But we are here now, ready to go, so let's get into it. Alright, we have our hobby box, which we'll leave for later. We'll get into the blaster boxes first. We have our scissors today, and our knife ready to go. YouTube's not caught up. What's going on? It's sounding a bit funny today. There we are. What a moment in football history last night. Alex Johnston try scorer. I had to laugh afterwards, but I seen them changing the jersey and I didn't realise why they were changing it. I thought something must have happened during the commotion. And then, yeah. Now knowing what they were doing. Anyway. No one picked the score, so the gift card for round 3 now jackpots to $100. So look for that post early next week, or this week, whatever you want to call it. We're only Saturday, so next week still. Try and get them done on Monday, guys, as a routine. Look out for the new post on a Monday. Oh, I made a boo-boo. That's alright. Blasters. Starter packs. Morning, Lee. Too busy talking, not concentrating. The only thing is we won't know what packets are which now, but that's alright. Probably could figure it out. Right, last blaster box, and we'll open these 3 bonus packs and see which teams are hitting in the gold themes. Alright, they're all open. There we go. Bailey Simonson in the Eels. Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Blaze Talagi for Panthers. And Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. We basically missed that one completely. Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. And Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Alright, get these other two starter packs open. First of our starter pack league heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Oh, get out. Alifiana Khan-Pierre for Titans. Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. And lucky last, come on, Herbie Farnworth to the Dolphins. Alright, let's get these packets opened. We're finished with the scissors. They can go away. Bang, Jaden Campbell for Titans. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for Dragons. League heads Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Dream Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Keanu Kinney for the Titans. League heads Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Cassie Hiku for the Eels. Triumph Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous Marky Mark for the Roosters. Bang Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Colour die cut, Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Alex Seyfarth for the Tigers. Game Breakers, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Colin Matini for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Casey McLean for Panthers. Cameron Munster, Luke for Storm. League heads, Hammer Fido for the Dolphins. Luminous, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Gladiators, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters, number 548. Bailey Simonson, Luminous for Eels. Game breakers, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. League heads, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Game breakers, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous, Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Bang, AJ Brimson for Titans. Luminous, Asaya Papalihi for Panthers. League heads, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Bang, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous, Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Colour die cut, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Luminous, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. League heads, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Cameron Munster for the Storm. Luminous, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Bang, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. League heads, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous, Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. Mercury, Stefano Utkumanu for Storm, number 338. Luminous, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Red Triumph for the Panthers. Luminous Moses Lee Otter for Panthers. League Heads, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Gladiators, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Number 519. We haven't had any massive hits. We've now had a couple of Gladiators and a Mercury to kick us off. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. We're only just finishing off the packets from the Blasters and starter packs. Game Breakers, Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. League Heads, Cody Nicarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Why is it all Game Breakers? Game Breakers Tigers. What do you mean? We've got 2 Game Breakers for Tigers. Cowboys. Storm. I'm not exactly sure. Game Breakers, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. Bang Tyron Wishart for the Storm. Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. League Heads, Alafiana Khan Kiera for Titans. Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Yeah. They weren't in the same pack. They were probably out of different. Like, we've got 3 blaster boxes and 4 starter packs. League Heads, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Billy Smith for the Roosters. I just don't think I quite understand, besides Tigers being lucky to hit both, or unlucky, I'm not sure. Carl Lawton, Luminous for the Cowboys. I think that one just went over my head. Bang Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Zach Lomax for Eels. League Heads, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Die cut Tolator Koala for Manly. Luminous Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Bang Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous Billy Walters for Broncos. Game breakers Olivia Higgins for the Knights. Joseph Tarpanay Luminous for the Raiders. We are down to 3 packets left from the blaster boxes. League heads Harry Grant for the Storm. Luminous Greg Marshew for the Knights. Game breakers Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Alright, lucky last pack from the blasters and starter packs. Die cut Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Luminous Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. And that's it. We had, as I said, a couple of Gladiators. I think only the one Mercury in that. Let's get into our case. Alright, let's go. Box number 1. Game breakers Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Bailey Haywood for Bulldogs. Bang Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. League heads Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous Jalen de Groot for Titans. Die cut Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Game breakers Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Luminous Cassie Hiku for the Eels. League heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Philly Walters, Luminous for the Broncos. Mercury, Fanua Pole for the Tigers, number 440. Luminous, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Red Triumph, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous, Izzy Katoa for the Dolphins. League heads, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Game breakers, Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. Luminous, Georgia Hale for the Titans. League heads, Cody Nicarima for the Titans. Luminous, Josh Kerr for Dragons. Game breakers, Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Luminous, Latu Finu for Tigers. Die cut, Peter for the Rabbitohs. Ezra Mam, Luminous for Broncos. We did list a new spot res this morning, guys, for Dragons in 420. League heads, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous, Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Bang, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous, Reuben Garrick for Manly. League heads, Alifiana Campiera for Titans. Luminous, Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Gladiators, Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers, number 5. Nice low one. That's what we like. Because I kept hitting refresh on YouTube, now I've lost the team list. And Fanua Blake, Luminous for the Sharks. League heads, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Greg Marsu for the Knights. Red Triumph for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Marky Mark for Roosters. League heads, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Lunas, Tom Gilbert for Dolphins. Bang, episode Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous, Wade Egan for Warriors. Bang, Kale Hero for the Sharks. Luminous, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Die cut, Lindsay Smith for the Panthers. Luminous, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. League heads, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Game Breakers, White for the Roosters. Luminous, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Well, first predictor for the break. Luminous, Trent LaRoe for Storm. League heads, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous, Jamal Fogarty for Manly. League heads, Renato Mulatalo for the Sharks. Luminous, Angelina for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Bang, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Bang, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous, Kuli Kefu for the Dolphins. Game Breakers, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. League heads, Jacob Little for the Dragons. Luminous, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Die cut, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous, Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. That's box one done and dusted. Box number 2. Game Breakers Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous Angus Crichton for Roosters. Bang, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. League Heads Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Taylor Preston for Bulldogs. Die cut Connor Tracy for Bulldogs. Luminous Ethan Bullimore for Manly. League Heads Carlin Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Game Breakers Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Luminous Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Triumph Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Luminous Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Colour die cut Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. League Heads Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous Payne Huss for Broncos. Red Triumph in the team for Warriors. Luminous Sebastian Chris for Raiders. League Heads Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Game Breakers Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Ruben Cotter for Cowboys. Mercury Luke Metcalf for the Warriors, number 368. Luminous Dream Buller for the Tigers. It does. It throws a yellow light, but it'll be right. We'll deal with it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, we'll be right. Philip Semi Bang for the Titans. Luminous Xavier Coates for the Storm. League Heads Mitchell Barnett for the Rabbitohs. Lunas Max King for the Bulldogs. Bang Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Lunas Elishan Albert Jones for the Warriors. Game Breakers Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Lunas Reese Walsh for the Broncos. The Hammer for Dolphins. Lunas Tolator Koala for we're back. They wanted to play funny buggers again. Oh, it's been doing it to me lately. The YouTube drops out and then all of a sudden it just comes back. I don't know. We've got all green dots on the router, so league heads Valami kick-out for Bulldogs. Luminous Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Bang Tyrant Wisher for the Storm. Lunas Kurt Catewell for the Warriors. Gladiators upside down. 151 Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. League heads Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Toby Farmworth Luminous for the Dolphins. Game Breakers Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Dylan Egan for the Dragons. League heads Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. Jacob Saifiti die cut for the Knights. Luminous Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Bang Reese Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous Aleka Halasima for the Warriors. League heads Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous Hammer for the Dolphins. Gold Triumph. I reckon we leave that one for the end with the predictors. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Might want to let Deborah know that every time she bends over at her bag, she's pointing the butt at the camera. Game Breakers Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Isaiah Yo for Panthers. I don't know. I seen her bending over and then looked at the camera. League heads, Jerome Aloi for the Tigers. There's only 7 people watching it live. Dylan Brown, Luminous for the Knights. So they can pause it and screenshot it, yeah. The Hammer Bang for the Dolphins. She's going to be the new internet meme. Clinton Gutherson, Luminous for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Matt Burton, Luminous for the Bulldogs. Die cut, Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. 3 packets left in our second box. League heads, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Jerome Luai for Tigers. Game Breakers, Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous, Nico Hines for the Sharks. And that is box number 2. Game Breakers, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous, Tamika Upton for the Broncos. League heads, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Bang Tolator Kuwala for Manly. Luminous, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Billy Smith for the Roosters. Luminous, Ben Chaboyevich for Manly. League heads, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Sanua Taruva for Tigers. League heads, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Luminous, Will Penasini for the Eels. Jermaine McEwen, die cut for the Knights. Luminous, Jonah Pezzett for the Storm. Game breakers, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous, Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. League heads, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous, Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Game breakers, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Bang, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. League heads, Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous, Sarah Togatuki for Tigers. Game breakers, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous, Conley Lumilu for Dolphins. Red Triumph, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous, Samuel Stonestreet for Sharks. Die cut, Renato Molitalo for the Sharks. Luminous, Tanila Paseka for Manly. League heads, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Game breakers, Cameron Munster for the Storm. Luminous, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Bang, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous, Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Gladiators, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons, number 194. Luminous, Cameron Munster for Storm. League heads, Cameron Munster for Storm. Harry Grant for Storm. Die cut, Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Luminous, Renato Molitalo for the Sharks. League heads, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Colour Dyker Tanila Paseka for Manly. Luminous Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Game Breakers Payne Huss for the Broncos. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Bang Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Luminous Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. League Heads James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Die cut Jeremy Marshall King for the Dolphins. Luminous Asaya Papalihi for Panthers. League Heads Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. League Heads Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Bang Casey McLean for Panthers. Luminous Zach Labour for the Cowboys. Game Breakers Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Loco Tonga for the Dragons. Red Triumph for the team in Storm. Luminous Luke Brooks for Manly. Bang William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous Alex Seafer for the Tigers. Game Breakers Emily Bass for the Tigers. Luminous Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. League Heads Chance Nicole Clockstad for the Warriors. Luminous Ali Leitua for the Warriors. Mercury Billy Smith for the Roosters, number 395. Luminous Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. And that's the end of box number 3. League heads, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous, Milwaukee Fodawaika for Titans. Red Triumph, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous, Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. I haven't looked when the women's start. I did hear him say that they were preparing for Origin. Bang, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. I'd assume with all the extra teams, they would be starting soon. Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins in Luminous. League heads, Joash for the Eels. Luminous, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Bang, Chance Nico Clockstad for the Warriors. Luminous, Jesse Aramian for the Sharks. Bang, Carlin Ponga for the Knights. Luminous, Satili Tupanua for Bulldogs. Red Triumph for the Titans. Luminous, Sean Russell for the Eels. Colour die cut, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Bang, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous, Dominic Young for the Knights. League heads, Apiso Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous, Hamoli Olika Atu for Manly. Game breakers, Lindsay Smith for the Panthers. Luminous, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Game breakers, Shaylee Bent for the Titans. Luminous, Casey McLean for Panthers. Colour die cut, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous, Chance Nico Clockstad for the Warriors. League heads, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Game breakers, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Game breakers, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. We have a predictor. Luminous Tom Starling for the Raiders. League heads, Big Tino for Titans. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. League heads, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Game breakers, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League heads, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Bang Cody Nicarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. League heads, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Luminous Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Mercury, Jermaine McEwen for the Knights, number 332. Yeah, Skylar. Luminous Sarah Togatuki for the Tigers. Bang Brian Pappenhausen for the Storm. Luminous Teddy for the Roosters. League heads, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Max Platt for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Die cut, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Luminous Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. League heads, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Luminous Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. League heads, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Gladiators, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs, number 308. Luminous, Sanua Taruva for Tigers. League heads, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Will Penasini for the Eels. Game breakers, Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Luminous, Jonah Pezzett for the Storm. Game breakers, Alex Seafarth for the Tigers. Luminous, Connolly Lumilu for the Dolphins. Colour die cut, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Samuel Stone Street for the Sharks. Alright, box number 4 done and dusted. Beautiful. Alright, box number 5. League heads, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Lunas Bradman Best for the Knights. Game breakers, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Luminous Junior Paulo for the Eels. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous Felice Kafusi for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Tanila Paseka for Manly. Luminous Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Bang, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Lachlan Elias for Dragons. League heads, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous Billy Smith for the Roosters. Triumph Cooley Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous Max King for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous Lyshan Albert Jones for the Warriors. Game breakers, Mahalia Murphy for the Eels. Luminous, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Gladiators, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs, number 484. Luminous, Alex 12 for the Tigers. League heads, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous, Tyron Wisher for the Storm. Bang Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luminous, Kira Dib for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Alifiana Khan Kiera for Titans. Luminous, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Mercury, Bo Fermor for the Titans, number 26. A Luminous, Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Game breakers, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Luminous, Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. League heads, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Bang Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Colour die cut, Zach Labert for Cowboys. Luminous, Sam Verrills for the Titans. League head, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Red Triumph, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous, Wade Egan for the Dragons. League heads, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous, Abby Church for the Eels. Bang Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. League heads Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Luminous Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Colour die cut Brighton Nakora for Sharks. Luminous Tolator Koala for Manly. Bang Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. League heads Dream Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Payne Huss for the Broncos. Game Breakers Adam Fenua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. League heads Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Phoenix Crossland Luminous for the Knights. Colour die cut Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game Breakers Valami kick out for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Jerome Luai Bang for the Tigers. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Where are we at? Fifth last packet for our fifth box. League heads Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Ethan Bullymore for Manly. League heads Sam Verrills for the Titans. Luminous Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Colour die cut Cody Nicarima for Dolphins. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. Game Breakers Bo Fermor for the Titans. Luminous Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Well, there's our instant win. Luminous Dylan Brown for the Knights. And that's another box done and dusted. All right, box number 6. Gladiators, William Kennedy for the Sharks, number 147. Luminous, Tamale for the Raiders. League heads, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous, Emma Veron for the Sharks. Game breakers, Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Luminous, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. League heads, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous, Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Game breakers, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Die cut, Alex Seafarth for the Tigers. Luminous, Philip Semi for Titans. Game breakers, Lehe Hopewate for Manly. Luminous, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. League heads, AJ Brinslin for the Titans. Luminous, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Joash Papali'i for the Eels. Luminous, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. League heads, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous, Dane Gagai for the Knights. Bang, Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous, Connor Watson for the Roosters. League heads, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Colour die cut, Nick Meaney for the Storm. Luminous, Dylan Walker for the Eels. Bang, Renato Mulatalo for Sharks. Luminous, Zahara Temera for the Raiders. Game breakers, Tiana Penatoni Grey for the Sharks. Luminous Brian Top for Panthers. Die cut Chance Nicole Clockstad for the Warriors. Luminous Roger Tuivasa Shek for the Warriors. League heads Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous Tiana Penatoni Grey for the Sharks. Game breakers Kuli Kefu for the Dolphins. Luminous Terrell May for the Tigers. League heads Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous Luke Lily for the Tigers. Game breakers Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Die cut Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. League heads Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Game breakers Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Tui Kamikamika for the Storm. Bang Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous Jake Trebojevic for Manly. League heads Blake Brayley for Sharks. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. Can we shut windows or doors, please? Something. Bang Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Luminous Jack Williams for the Eels. League heads Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous Stefano Utikamanu for Storm. Mercury Brian Top for Panthers, number 333. 333. Luminous KO Weeks for the Raiders. Red Triumph for Manly in the team. Luminous Bo Fermor for the Titans. Red Triumph Renato Mulatalo for Sharks. Tegan Berry, Luminous for the Dragons. For some reason in my head then I thought he was going to the Storm. League heads, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous white for the Roosters.
Anyone didn't realise we're also running a doggy daycare now.
Doggy daycare. Well, no, you walking over here, they couldn't see the dog, by the way.
Oh, okay.
If that's what you were. Game breakers, Loco Tonga. Luminous Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Colour die cut Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous Lindsay Smith for the Panthers. League heads Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Bang Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Game breakers Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Tommy Turbo for Manly. Excuse me, and that is box number 6 done and dusted. All right, box number 7. G'day Kyle, welcome mate. Game breakers Nelson Asafa Solomona for the Storm. Luminous Lehe Hopawate for Manly. League heads Isaiah Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous Lycan King Togia for Dragons. Game breakers Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. League heads Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Game Breakers Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Bang KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. League heads Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. colour die cut Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Bang Tanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous Apposite Coruscant for Tigers. League Heads Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous Liam Martin for Panthers. Die cut Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Bang Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Luminous Alifiana Campiera for Titans. League Heads Mawaki Fodawaika for the Titans. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. Is there autos? Yes, there is. Have we got any? Not yet.
Is there any luck?
Autos. Triumph Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. League Heads Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Samima Torfa for the Raiders. Game Breakers Bree Chester for the Cowboys. Luminous Luca Moretti for the Eels. Good luck, Sense, mate. Mercury Jesse Colhoun for the Sharks. Number 169. Luminous James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. League Heads James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Game Breakers Sanoa Taruva for the Tigers. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. These boxes are 140 and we have the combos with the hobby boxes for 410. Or there's the mega combo, which I'm not sure if there's any in stock. Yes, there is. There you go. Plenty of options. Check the website. Bang Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Big Tino Luminous for the Titans. League Heads Harry Grant for the Storm. Wait. Luminous Kale Iro for the Sharks. Die cut Griffin Neem for the Cowboys. Luminous Cody Nicarima for the Dolphins. Game Breakers Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. League Heads Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Oh, itchy nose. Colour die cut Katoni Stags for the Broncos. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. League Heads Ezra Mann for the Broncos. Luminous Damien Cook for the Dragons. Game Breakers Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. Bang Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. League Heads Keon Colin for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Gehamat Shabarski for the Broncos. Excuse me. Triumph Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Colour die cut Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Game Breakers Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous Keezy Apps for the Tigers. League Heads Greg Marshew for the Knights. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Bang Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Brighton Nakora for Sharks. Gladiators, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders, number 41. Luminous Kalen Ponga for the Knights. All right. Box number 8. Colour die cut Trent LaRoe for Storm. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. Bang James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. League heads Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Game breakers Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. League heads Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Die cut Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. League heads Murata Nakor for the Warriors. Teddy Luminous for the Roosters. Game breakers Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Gladiators Carlin Ponga for the Knights, number 530. Luminous Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. Mercury Tom Starling for the Raiders, number 77. Luminous Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Game breakers Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous Kalen Ponga for the Knights. League heads Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. League heads Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Luminous Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Game breakers Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Colour die cut David Clemmer for the Dragons. Luminous Mawaki Fodawaika for the Titans. Bang Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. Game breakers Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Luminous Alafiana Kampi Era for Titans. League heads Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. League heads Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Luminous Damien Cook for the Dragons. Die cut Marcelo Montoya for the Bulldogs. Luminous Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Bang Jalen de Groot for Titans. Luminous Dominic Young for the Knights. League heads Dylan Walker for the Eels. Luminous Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. Game breakers Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Dally M Predictor. Jackson Purdue Luminous for the Cowboys. League heads Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Red Triumph for the team in Broncos. Luminous Tom Starling for the Raiders. Bang Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Jerome Hughes for Storm. League heads Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Casey McLean for Panthers. Red Triumph Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Game breakers Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. League heads Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous William Kennedy for the Sharks. Game breakers William Kennedy for the Sharks. Saitili Tupanua Luminous for the Bulldogs. Bang Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. Game breakers Olivia Higgins for the Knights. Luminous Max Plath for the Dolphins. Bang Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. League heads Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Bang Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous AJ Brimson for the Titans. League heads, Carlin Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Game breakers, Harry Grant for the Storm. Luminous Moses Liotta for Panthers. League heads, Molly Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Game breakers, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. Die cut, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Bang Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Trent Leroux for Storm. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Die cut, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. League heads, Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous Tui Kamikamika for Storm. League heads, Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Luminous Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Mercury Tolator Koala for Manly, 312. Luminous Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. League heads, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Bang Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Luminous Falago for the Storm. League heads, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Die cut, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Red Triumph, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Game breakers, Satili Tupanua for Bulldogs. Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks. Gladiators, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys, 167. Luminous Samula Fainu for the Tigers. League heads, Connolly Loomy Lou for the Dolphins. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Colour die cut Tamale for the Raiders. Philip Semi Luminous for the Titans. Game Breakers Luca Moretti for the Eels. Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Bang Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Game Breakers Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs. League Heads Luciano Le Lua for the Dragons. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Game Breakers Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous White for the Roosters. League Heads Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Jack Bostock Luminous for the Dolphins. Bang Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Lindsay Smith for Panthers. League Heads Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. Die cut Molly Olaka-Atu for Manly. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. League Heads Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous Moses Sulai for Dragons. Game Breakers Alex Twal for the Tigers. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. Bang Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Red Triumph Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Brian Totter for Panthers. League Heads Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous Luke Lawlilly for the Tigers. Game Breakers Lachlan Lewis for the Dragons. Luminous Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. League Heads Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Luminous Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Game breakers, Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Luminous, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Colour die cut, white for the Roosters. Luminous, Carl Lawton for the Cowboys. League heads, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous, Fanua Pollock for the Tigers. Bang, Alifiana Khan-Piera for Titans. Luminous, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. League heads, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Angelina for the Bulldogs. Die cut, Sean Russell for the Eels. Luminous, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Do we need to be squeaking the toy for no reason? League heads, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Game breakers, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Bang, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Wade Egan for the Warriors. League heads, Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous, Latu Finu for Tigers. League heads, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Luminous, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Colour die cut, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Game breakers, Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. Luminous, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Greg Triumph for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Gladiators, Tommy Turbo for Manly, number 227. Luminous, Ezra Mann for the Broncos. Game breakers, Brian Top for Panthers. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Red Triumph, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Mercury Junior Paulo for the Eels, number 430. Luminous Billy Walters for the Broncos. League heads, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Joseph Tarpanay, Luminous for the Raiders. Die cut Carlin Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Moses Leota for Panthers. League heads Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Bang Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. Game breakers Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous Greg Marsu for the Knights. Bang Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Kuli Kefu for the Dolphins. League heads Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Game breakers Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. League heads Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Bang Greg Marsu. Here we go. The first one I've found of these where the silver print is actually misprinted above the name and you can see a print line down here. This one's actually not as bad as the other one I've seen. The other one I've seen, the foil was up here and the print line was just beneath the name. So there we go. Opened a few so far and that's the first one I've found. Falago, Luminous for Storm. I know there's a few error collectors out there. I'm not sure who they are and how many there are these days. League heads Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Predictor Luminous Trent LaRoe for Storm. Bang Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Game breakers Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous AJ Brimson for the Titans. League heads Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous Murata Nakor for the Warriors. Box number 11. League heads Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Cameron Munster for Storm. Bang Tony Staggs for Broncos. Luminous Brian Kelly for the Titans. Game breakers Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Luminous Ruben Garrick for Manly. League heads, Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Luminous Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Bang, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Luminous Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Game breakers, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Red Triumph, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. League heads, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous Luciano Lay Lua for the Dragons. Colour die cut, Ben Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous Katoni Stags for the Broncos. League heads, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Asaya Papali'i for Panthers. Game breakers, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Bang, Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Luminous Alex Seifa for Tigers. Colour die cut, Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. League heads, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Luminous Sam Walker for the Roosters. Red Triumph, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Olivia Koenig for the Roosters. Luminous Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. League heads, Payne Huss for the Broncos. Luminous Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Mercury, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs, number 427. Luminous Jalen de Groot for the Titans. League heads, Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Luminous Ali Leitua for the Warriors. Colour die cut, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Luminous Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. League heads, Spencer Linu for the Roosters. Luminous Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Game breakers, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Gladiators, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors, number 366. Luminous, Harry Grant for the Storm. League heads, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous, Renato Molitalo for the Sharks. League heads, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Bang, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous, Cassie Hiku for the Eels. Game breakers, Mawaki Fodawaika for the Titans. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Bang, Blaze Talagi. Another print line on this one. Panthers. Luminous, Zach Labour for the Cowboys. League heads, Suliali for the Storm. Loco Tonga, Luminous for the Dragons. Die cut, Murata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous, Luke Brooks for Manly. Bang, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous, Isaiah Katoa for the Dolphins. Game breakers, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Luminous, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. 2 packets left for the box. Colour die cut, Sanua Taruva for the Tigers. Luminous, Georgia Hale for the Titans. League heads, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous, Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Alright, we're up to box 12 out of the case. Last box in the case. Colour die cut, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Red Triumph in the team for Knights. Ben Hunt, Luminous for the Broncos. Game breakers, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. No, not two. Asai Yongi for the Eels. Bang, Leheo Pawate for Manly. Luminous, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Alex Twile for the Tigers. Luminous, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Joash for the Eels. Luminous, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. League heads, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Luminous, Cody Nicarima for the Dolphins. Bang, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, Jason Saab for Manly. League heads, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Game breakers, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Gladiators, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels, number 577. Luminous, Leka Halasima for the Warriors. League heads, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous, Hammer for the Dolphins. You got these windows open, it doesn't matter. Game breakers, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Luminous, Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Coloured die cut, Alafiana Khan Piera for Titans. Luminous, Nico Hines for the Sharks. League heads, Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous, Lehel Pawate for Manly. Game breakers, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous, Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. League heads, Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Luminous, Gehamat Shabarski for Broncos. In the break, only the one for this break. I don't think we've had a break that's had more than one so far. We've opened a few cases of different things, so we've been able to open quite a few overall. Red Triumph, Dream Buller for the Tigers. Luminous, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. We are expecting some big prizes on those instant wins, so looking forward to seeing what there actually is when they come out. Tamale for the Raiders, Morgan Smithies, the Luminous for the Raiders. Brought a box this morning and pulled the South one. Yeah, well, that's awesome. No, unfortunately, no one actually knows. It's supposed to be a range of things. It could be a signed card. It could be a team set of something. It could be a sealed box. There's been all different things thrown out there. Unfortunately, we won't know for sure until it's released. Game breakers, Appy Nickers for the Warriors. Well, 1 year in the AFL, they had a trip to Disneyland. Luminous, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. I don't think there's going to be anything as big, anything close to it in this, as much as I'd like there to be. But you never know. We won't know until they release that list. League heads, Isaiah Yeo for Panthers. Luminous, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. The potential's definitely in there for them to be worth anything, but we won't know until that list is released. Mercury, Lachlan Ilias for the Dragons. 306. Well, we are mid-March, so yeah, hopefully. Luminous, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. We've been listing ours for 200, 199. Die cut Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. League heads Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Game breakers Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. League heads Connor Watson for the Roosters. Liam Martin, Luminous for Panthers. Yes, we would like to see a limited edition for him in particular, so that would be good if something come out. League heads Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. I don't think they would put that with the instant wins though. I think that would just be a limited edition, limited time purchasing. Game breakers Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Bang, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Cameron Munster for the Storm. Scott Drinkwater, Luminous for the Cowboys. League heads Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous Luca Moretti for the Eels. Colour die cut Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous James Fisher Harris for the Warriors. Game breakers Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Bang, Ali Latua for the Warriors. Luminous Val Holmes for the Dragons. Origin Predictor. League heads Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous Big Tino for the Titans. And lucky last pack in our case. We still have the hobby box to go. We've got a colour die cut Terrell May for the Tigers. And Luminous Kale Hero for the Sharks. Alright. Lucky last box of the break, which is the hobby box. Alright, let's go. Luminous Moses Sulai 199 for the Dragons. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels 394. Gladiators Ray Stone number 110 for the Dolphins. Luminous Sean Kepi for the Rabbitohs, number 228. Gold die cut Moses Sulai for the Dragons, number 100. Luminous Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Luminous White for the Roosters, number 566. Gold die cut Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Nice low one, number 12. Oh. Luminous Jack Bostock, number 2. Whoa, there we go. For the Dolphins, nice low one. Etched Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs, number 12. A few low numbers in this box. Luminous Lindsay Smith for the Panthers, number 242. Mercury Sterling Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs, number 42. Alright, put that corner up there. I don't know how well that will show up. Luminous Fletcher Sharp for the Knights, number 670. Gallant Watine Zalesniak gold die cut, number 224. Luminous Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous Zahara Temera for the Raiders, number 619. Cody Nicarima gold die cut for the Dolphins, number 40. Luminous Brian To'o for Panthers, number 244. And we have a Dally M Predictor. Luminous Luke Lawlilly for the Tigers. Gold die cut Jalen DeGroot for the Titans, number 22. We've got 6 packets left for the break. Here we go on the last run. Luminous Murray Talagi for the Cowboys, 196. Etched Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs, 161. Chanel Harris Tavita in the Luminous 402 for Warriors. Gladiators, Greg Marshall for the Knights, number 69. Four packets to go. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks, number 265. Jacob Carraz in the gold die cut for Bulldogs, number 44. Luminous Tui Kamika for Storm, number 299. Luminous Jake Trbojevic for Manly, number 601. Playmakers, Wade Egan for the Warriors, number 48. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters, number 347. And etched Clemmer for the Dragons, 167. Alright, let's go through these hits. Starting with the first one, Dally M Predictor, number 78, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Next one, our Golden Triumph for the Cowboys, number 52. Next up, Dally M Predictor, number 205. Bradman Best for the Knights. Our instant win. I feel like we've hit a couple of these in the breaks now, and I think the last one, no, he didn't win it in a Raz. He grabbed it to finish off the break. Another Tigers one, this time with the Raz win, Robert Thomas. Alright, Dally M Predictor, number 28. I did sneakily see this one and I was a little bit excited for him. Sharyn Griggs with Nathan Cleary for Panthers. That's a big hit. Alright. Next up, Dally M Rookie Predictor Signature, number 97 for the Dragons. Alright guys, two more to get through. Here we go. Our State of Origin Predictor. Number 12, Connor Watson. We've got Greg King with the Roosters. And lucky last, our Platinum Dally M Predictor. It is a wild. It is number 63 for the Dragons. Adam Barber. Alright guys, that's it for this one. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to check out available spots on the website.